do choose your own adventure here. You have a choice between a ghost story and a vampire story.
Vampires.
Vampires? Raise your hand for ghosts. Vampires. I think vampires won by one guy, the vampire. Yeah, a little biased, aren't you? Now, I'm working on a TV series with Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures for the last 2 years called Vampire Adventures. It didn't work out, sadly, but I'll put the trailer online. It was about investigating the top 13 legends of the vampire. And Paris, has anybody read Anne Rice's books or seen the movie Interview with the Vampire? Well, you're going to see it again because they just announced they're remaking it. What? Yeah, I know, right? Well, I just wrote a Huffington Post article begging them not to make a sequel like they did with Queen of the Damned, which is a horrible movie. Okay, so Anne Rice is not responding publicly because she is sick at home right now. Sadly, she is not available to make comments on Facebook. So Beckett, her assistant, is talking. Paris has the second most famous vampire in the world, and the origins we're going to walk through in the end of this tour. His name is Lestat. Has anybody heard the name Lestat? Tom Cruise portrayed him in the movie Interview with the Vampire about Neil Jordan, which released in November of 1994. Excellent costumes, amazing soundtrack. Guns N' Roses was in it. It was about a vampire named Lestat, who was from Avignon, and he came to Paris right before the French Revolution. And some of the footsteps that we walk through tonight will be the footsteps of Lestat. But if you don't know Lestat, it's still a really cool story. However, there is some truth behind the myth. Paris, in the movie Interview with the Vampire, there was the Theater of the Vampires. Believe it or not, there was not one Theater of the Vampires in Paris. There was 5. 4, right after Polidori wrote the script with Mary Shelley, Frankenstein and the Vampire with a Y. This was 1821. That script was circulated around Paris. This is the first modern vampire myth. Before that, vampires were big, bloated human ticks that would come feed on their families. Very Eastern style, with stake through the heart, pop them like a tick. Doesn't sound very fun. However, the vampire story was about 3 pages, but it was very romantic and sensual. And the modern Western vampire mythos was born, which you know is Dracula and Lestat. Vampires can't go out in the day. Well, that play got circulated around, and 4 vampire theaters opened in Paris that all remained until the end of the second royalist. I'm getting into French history too complex, but basically to the beginning of the French Second Empire in 1848, from around 1821, 1824 to 1848 was like penny dreadful time for the French. Then the Victorian era took over. The theaters closed. Then in 1897, in the Pigalle district with all the theaters, a small 20-person theater opened. And this theater was called the Grand Guignol. Now, it wasn't particularly a vampire theater. However, it created what we know today as modern slasher horror, which did not exist. Penny dreadful horror, kind of creepy Jack the Ripper and Portrait of Dorian Gray kind of stuff, but blood and guts, chainsaws, chopping, all that kind of gory stuff did not, Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, did not exist until the Grand Guignol. They had 20 to 30 scripted plays, and they would spill more blood in one night, some journalists said, than the entire French Reign of Terror. They would cover the audience in blood. It was the gimmick. They chopped in the famous guillotine that chopped your head off, the magic trick, was invented for the Grand Guignol. Today, it's a school for blind kids, but you will see it on our Vampire World YouTube channel. If you want to see some of these things in the next couple of weeks, we're going to film these stories with me walking through the streets of Paris, explaining the mysteries of Paris. from the perspective of the vampire. So you got 5 vampire theaters, including the Grand Guignol, because a lot of people think Anne Rice created the Theater of the Vampires based on the Grand Guignol. That is not true. She didn't even know about it. I believe she hasn't even been to Paris at the time she created it. However, she was accurate in some things. Tonight we're going to walk into the former cemetery where Lestat founded the Theater of the Vampires. Okay, you look bored because you don't know the story. Is it entertaining at least? Oh, the English? Oh, this is it. Are you German or French? Okay. So, we're going to do that, but I'm going to tell you one story. If you guys have 10 more minutes longer than the story? Okay. We're going to sift through here now. In the year 1685, 25 young men disappeared in Paris. 25 young men from this district. And Louis XIV got really nervous because he needed young men for his military, and the officers came from this district. So he sent an investigator, a guy named Lecoq, a musketeer. Lecoq, I'm not joking. The guy's name is Lecoq. I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
Like a rooster.
Yeah, not the other. So his job was to find out why these young men were disappearing. So he got his son, nicknamed Wide Awake because he looked like he drank 20 Red Bulls. Dressed him in a nice uniform, gave him a backstory that he was undercover, that he was the son of a wealthy doctor from court. Then put him in the Tuileries garden with a big bag of coins and a nice shirt. And on the 3rd day, a beautiful British woman named Clarice came up and had an etching of a beautiful Polish princess, claiming the backstory that there was a Polish princess, and I'm not kidding, this is another weird name. It's my research, I didn't make this up. Princess Jabberwocky. Yeah, right? Very Alice in Wonderland. Princess Jabberwocky, her father had been called back to Poland at the request of the king, and of the Polish king, because Polish was a kingdom at the time. And he died, leaving her a fortune, and she needed to find a proper suitor. So she was going around the gardens looking for a proper suitor, being the son of a doctor from court. She said, all right, meet me at the steps of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, across the river at midnight, and I will take you there. Because the young lady is allergic to sunlight, she can't go out in the day, and we need to prepare her for you. He's like, huh? And no one really knew the legends of vampires at the time. So, tells his dad's like, this is great, I'm going to have 3 musketeers right behind you. No problem. Saint-Germain-des-Prés is across the river. This reminds you a little bit of the medieval winding streets at the time, and we are going to go down that street, Rue Courtalon, the shortest street in Paris. It's just number 1 and number 2. And we're going to walk while Clarice brought Wide Awake right into the street, and we're going to walk in their footsteps.